Thank you so much for joining in.
Yeah.
This is Abhilash, and today we have got Lynn Modester with us. Um, the topic is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk about how Kenya and India are sharing certain similar kind of issues when it comes to climate change. And climate change has already taken a dramatic shift in last couple of years. The best part is people across the world has understood the seriousness connected to climate change, and people have started responding to it. Uh, Lynn comes from a background being a youth, and she has been doing quite dramatic things on ground in Kenya. And she has been a serious activist, environmental activist, and she has been doing a lot of on ground work in Kenya with different associations and organizations. She is currently a chairperson to uh, she is currently a chairperson to Kenya Inter University Environmental Students Association, and we have got quite few interactions over the Twitter and other social media channels, and it has been a very beautiful interaction, which kind of triggered this conversation of today's talk. Lynn, I would request you to give a quick brief about yourself, what you do, why climate change, you kind of a youth representing young people of Kenya, where in the world right now chasing a lot of other dreams. What exactly happened that probably made you to start thinking about climate change and how you are structured as a climate person? Len.
Um, Thank you so much, Avi. Thank you again for this platform, and I'm happy to be here and to be able to just give a side of the story from a Kenyan perspective. Um, my journey with climate change didn't start all glamorous, actually. So I didn't realize just how much I could engage into the climate space. Actually, I was not as aware about climate change issues until I joined campus. So around the age of 18, 19, that's when I was exposed to the environment on a critical level. So it was mostly based on education. So I was studying environmental resource management, and I was clueless. So one thing that happened was I was able to join one of the environmental clubs in our institution, and that was when I met like a community of people who are more engaged in the climate space and environment space, and I was able to actually meet people who are like-minded, who are critically thinking about what's going on in the environment, and it kind of rubbed off on me. So I became a bit more curious, and there's things in school, and then there was like it was like practicals back in the clubs when we discuss about some of the things we learned in what in our classrooms, and just that kind of conversation and that kind of back and forth just opened my mind to all this inequities that are happening in the climate space, and also be able to kind of be able to relate what I was seeing around me to how the climate and change was connected to it. So that was where I began. And over time, I was able to now be more engaged in now the physical aspect of it. So now the tree plantings we were able to do around our areas, because my institution is in a very dry areas. It's part of the arid, semi-arid lands. And, just being able to now take part in making a difference. And from there, it's just been onwards for me. Yeah.
All right. And I think, Lynn, one of the things are like, it's also, you need to be fortunate enough to be connected to something like that. I don't think everybody gets an opportunity and gets a stream to probably explore the kind of things that you are exploring today. And everybody has their own aspects of exploration, but I think world today needs people at your age are very much required to help this world move in the direction wherein we start looking into solutions. We start looking into helping innovate certain kind of technologies that can probably help us mitigate this impending threat of climate change. I think Kenya and India has a lot of similar things when it comes to climate change. We are struggling from dramatic, floods in India as well. I know that Kenya is also struggling with a lot of rainfalls and dramatic rainfalls in recent years, and creating a lot of floods, and also drought is another extreme which you guys are facing. And I think it is because how you guys are
Yeah.
geographically situated. And tell me about it. A lot of people are unable to understand. One time we speak about a lot of drought going on in a country, and at the other side of the story, people speak about a lot of floods happening in the country. How these two different extremes actually go hand in hand when it comes to Kenya?
Um, so for my country, we kind of like have two different types of lands. So there's a really fertile side of it, and there's a really arid side of Kenya. So you find a situation whereby when we have the seasonal rains, some areas don't receive as much rainfall as others. So the really quote unquote fertile areas of Kenya tend to receive a lot more rainfall compared to now the northern side and northeastern side of Kenya, that geographically, which are always termed as the arid and semi-arid areas. So the kind of rainfall they receive is always going to be lesser than the kind of rainfall regions such as the Rift Valley are going to receive. So you'll find in cases where we have rainy seasons, which we are currently supposed to have, although as I mentioned before in our earlier conversation, that we are having short rains instead of the long rains that this season is supposed to have. So in areas such as the Rift Valley, the area is very fertile. The kind of soil is volcanic. They have a lot of trees. The environment is very conducive to actually attract rain. But then at the same time, with kind of the environmental degradation that has been happening, where people clear lands to be able to create more agricultural sites, you find whereby people are trying to also have charcoal for their own energy consumption. Such areas will have floods simply because there's no vegetation to actually absorb the kind of water that they're receiving. Since their area receives a lot of rainfall, there's not enough water that's going down to the soil. So now you find situations where there's a lot of mudslides since there's not enough vegetation to actually hold the soil. You also find now the floods, whereby now waters are breaking banks because people actually grabbed such lands. They were not supposed to be areas for people to live in or people to work on. The other side of it, the arid and semi-arid lands tend to have less rainfall, and in most cases, such areas are filled with pastoralists as a way of, adapting to the kind of environments they have. So often they receive less rainfall during any kind of season. So you find they have less vegetation around, they have less water just around them. So they tend to experience a lot of drought simply because they don't receive a lot of rainfall based on their geographical location. At the same time, they also don't have enough vegetation to actually attract enough rainfall based on now the scientific aspect of it, the whole process of photosynthesis. Sorry, so now you find that in such areas, most of these people have to wait on now the short rains to be able to even have their cattle to be able to drink water, or the little vegetation they have has to be based on irrigation. But at the same time, they also receive a bit of floods simply because the rivers that they actually have receive water from the highlands, and they break banks when the water is a little excess on the upper side as they flow down. So you see, this is an ironical situation, yes. But when you pray
True.
for rain, you never really know how much rain you're going to have. So it's both a blessing and a curse, because when it's a dry season, we don't have enough food, we don't have our cattle are dying, we have the drought period. When the rains come at the same time, they're breaking banks and they're coming over to our land and it's flooded and there's mudslides, people are being buried alive. So I think that is just how much climate change is affecting us. There's really no blessing and curse within our own environment. Yeah.
And I think you guys, your economy is primarily dependent on agriculture, and the agriculture is
Yeah.
also more of a rain-fed based agriculture in your country. So at you said it right. At one extreme, it is drought. One extreme, it is too much of rainfall, and both are very much dangerous for your agriculture, which is a primary driving factor for your economy. Uh, do you see that because of these climatic changes and how things have been in past decades, there is an increase in other issues which were already pertaining in your country, like malaria, like poverty, like any other issues of your country specifically? What do you think about it? Are those problems which you have been facing since many years, are those getting increased because of these climatic changes? Is there anything of that sort? Len.
Yes. I can give you now from a personal point of view, especially. My rural area is in a place called Kisumu, which is a very highly affected area with malaria issues. So you find a lot of people tend to experience diseases, including waterborne diseases. But then you find at the same time, as I mentioned, the extremities of our weather conditions. So during floods, we have high cases of malaria. And at the same time, you find that there's also the high cases of people lacking basic commodities like food. So the food insecurity aspect of it. So you find that in my region specifically, when it rains, it's a plain, so it's a plain land. So you find that the water floods so easily, and we kind of plant rice in our area, so that needs a lot of water. Just a way of adapting to the kind of geographical position we're in. But then this kind of harbors malaria a lot of the times because, well, they like still water, of course. So now when it rains, that is a high chance of malaria. At the same time, we also have now when the floods come in, our rice gets drowned. So we lack our source of income and food as well. So you find that climate change has been the most common effect that people still don't realize just how much it actually affects our day-to-day lives. So when these floods come in, we lose our source of income, we lose our source of food, so we are more prone to food insecurity. At the same time, when these floods come, the water is often still because, well, it's not draining. So we're harboring malaria just within us, around us, and we are very prone to such. During the drought season, again, we are still food insecure. We still have food insecurity around us. So it's um, social issues and both economic issues that combine to just kind of make our lives miserable, I could say. But then I think the one thing that people have not yet been able to look at is just how much connection this has to the climate change effect we're experiencing. People see it as just, we're very religious in our country. So most people just like, the gods have not favored us, with rain this time, or, we're being punished. But then if you look at it from a scientific point of view, this is just like the effects of climate change right now. And it's kind of making our situation even worse than it was previously.
So I think that's the first thing I would say is common between India and Kenya. That people here in India as well, the way we worship, we really forget about all of these issues coming up to us. And it's just
Yeah.
that if anybody has to do something, it's God who will do something about it, and we actually skip doing anything about it. So that's
True.
true, and you're very true about it. Even let's say if a country is in a danger zone wherein flood is a very common issue which happens, the increase of its effect or probably its frequency over the period of time because of climate change threatens the whole economy, because that disruption is very costly disruption, and probably a very small percentage of economy will be able to recover fast, or maybe in generations. But most of the common public in countries like yours and ours, wherein approximately 70-80% people are below poverty line, it becomes
Yeah.
it becomes so sad for them that they do not have an opportunity to even recover. And it's what you said is I can relate to that when it comes to climate change in our country. that if there is a serious if the temperature rises to 48 degrees, 49 degrees here in our country, there are human losses, and these human losses are mainly with those people who are in the section of poverty, because they do not have resources to help themselves. Like we guys are. We guys are very much blessed that we can somehow manage air conditioning, a better life. But people who are struggling on roads, on footpaths, they are cursed with the actions of what people like us are doing to this world. What do you think about it?
I mean, I just to comment on that. In most often cases in our country, I think the thing that helps us the most is we we just we're kind of rising up, because where we were before, in regards to climate education and climate awareness versus where we are now, we've taken a leap forward. I'm not saying we are where we're supposed to be, given, of course, some people are still skeptical about it, the science of it. But then I think, the more we talk about it, the more activists are on the ground, the more people are curious about what you guys doing, why you guys carrying placards, or why you guys coming to our community to plant trees, or why you guys coming to our community to like change up what we guys were planting to like a bit more sustainable sources of food, for instance. And I think that curiosity is what's helped us. Kenya is a very curious country. A lot of people are curious about what's going on. And I think that's what is helping us kind of reduce just how much effect we are having of climate change, simply because now people are a bit willing to now listen and say, okay, you've said that we're not supposed to be planting, we're not supposed to be having agriculture around water bodies because these are riparian lands. Where else do you want us to do, or what else can we do? What else can we plant around here? Say something like bamboos, mangroves around the coast regions that can be able to help. And I think that's what's helping us to just reduce. And I could also say some bit about the government also coming in. And the one thing that we're still yet to see as much as our disaster risk management. It's still not top notch. You hear me?
We can hear you.
I have apologies for that.
No, no problem. I think that's the second same thing between India and Kenya. We face serious disruption of internet all the time.
I
So
mean,
that's not a worry.
we're moving towards better systems.
That's fine. I think we were speaking about wherein you were telling that the government is having a fair policy towards climate mitigation, issue mitigations, and I think Kenya is among one of those countries in South in the African region who have adapted the climate policies at a very early stage, and it's kind of matured as compared to the other countries. I think you dropped out while you were saying something about how government and the policies are doing. You can continue from there.
I mean, our government makes good policies. I am not going to lie about that. I mean, we have the Climate Change Act 2016, which is a very good, on paper, of course, it has very good policies to be able to just guide our interaction with the climate change spaces. And there are key areas, which includes the disaster risk management, which has focus on issues like floods and droughts. We have now the other priority areas, including energy, including forestry and food insecurity, etc. I mean, that's it means they're thinking about it, which is a good thing. But then, from a climate change and environmental perspective, as a person who's just been in the field for so long, our implementation is still wanting. And it's this focus comes even from the fact that we have the plastic ban that we actually developed, and it was really a good hype at the beginning, and it's been able to kind of reduce a lot of plastic usage. But then at the same time, now we still have the issues of people still kind of shipping some of these plastics illegally into the country, because we still don't have a mechanism to actually ensure people are able to transition from the plastic to we now have a cloth-based bags that we now use. But now you see, people still need plastic simply because, one, the education process was not as efficient. So we call them mama mbogas, our local grocery store owners. Still, some of them still use the plastics simply because they don't have any other alternative that can be able to actually hold some of the fruits without leaking. So if we can be able to have such technologies invented just as much as we are phasing out some of this pollution-related, I mean, items, then we can be able to have a much greater impact. So our policies are there, functional in very extreme cases, but on a day-to-day basis, the implementation is just not as top-notch as we'd want it. And I mean, that's the reason why some of us are still on the streets. Some of us are still doing cleanups till now. Our Nairobi River, which was like a pearl of Nairobi, is still as polluted as ever. And to some extent, it's still getting worse because we still use some of these plastics, and we still kind of ignore some of these policies and acts and laws that we still have on issues to do with environmental conservation. Yeah.
So hear me out. I do have a similar opinion when it comes to how we guys what kind of challenges we guys are facing in India. I have been speaking about this specific issue since quite some time, and the problem that I see is that whenever you want your government to enact on something, as a common public, we really need to be demanding about it. The problem I see is one of the primary problem, and I always speak about it at different forums as well, is that we as common citizens are not taking things seriously. Think like that. You have a problem of, let's say, job insecurity in your country, right? So when you have a problem of job insecurity, there is no good companies, there is economical disbalance. You probably, do a short out like a citizen. You will probably do rallies, you'll probably do strikes, you'll probably do a lot of different things to make the government aware that, this job issue is a big issue and you have to solve it. And these political parties, what they used to do is, they used to create these issues as their political agendas. They win elections on the basis of these specific agendas which common public are asking them to address. And when they have to come back to again in the power the next session, they again come back and say that you asked for job security and we did this, we did that, and they set up around all those stories around those issues. Now what I see, the problem is, we as common citizens have not yet put across the issue of climate threat with that seriousness. And that's where governments are also not focusing primarily on this issue, which in long term is going to be drastic. The problems that probably we are facing as humans from threats like COVID-19 or even wars, it will become very evident and very frequent because of climate change. And there is a major issue of literacy. And if common people are able to speak about it, and if they are aware, and if they put this issue as a critical issue in front of governments, they will start addressing it. So I'm not saying that governments should sit idle because we have not been shouting. They are the policy makers and they have to start working towards it. But I think as common citizens, I feel that responsibility starts from us as well. What do you think about it?
I mean, okay, I do share your sentiments, and I think sometimes one thing I really like to do is sit down with people who are a bit less engaged in the climate space, just to hear a different perspective. And there was something, one of the sessions, kind of someone brought it up, and they were like, "How do I fight for climate change when I don't even have food on my table?" And I'm dying of hunger. Of course, the first thing I'm going to do is ask for these people to be able to create an opportunity for me to be able to earn my food. I mean, climate change for me doesn't really affect me directly, and blah blah blah. So for them, I think what we need to do as environmentalists, as climate change activists, is to be able to now create this, um, just allow people to see just how climate change and the basic issues relate. Because if we separate them, then we're never going to be able to now stand as one front as citizens, to be able to now force our governments, our leaders to be able to act. So now, one thing I think, even in climate education space, is to be able to kind of relate. You don't have food on your table because some areas don't have enough rain. Why don't they have enough rain? Because you're cutting trees on such areas. That's why there's drought on that areas. You guys are building on riparian land, so there's not enough water that actually can supply for your farms. So it's kind of trying to create a pathway for them to be able to see this connects to this, and this connects to this, and this ultimately is caused by climate change and comes back to what I am doing on a daily basis. So governments will be able to listen to citizens, but when citizens are able to also relate their day-to-day issues with climate change. So I think that's where the disparity comes in, for why most common, we call them common mananchi in this side, that's like local citizens, are able to see just how much climate change relates to their day-to-day choices, their day-to-day issues, and be able to now put that as a front of, if you're not going to remove people from riparian lands, then we're not going to be able to have food, and that affects my issue that I really feel strongly about, which is food insecurity. Or we're talking about the way you guys are developing new roads and everything, but then at the same time, that means you're hurting some investments because you're closing down some areas, or you're demolishing some buildings, and at the same time, you're also giving specific people, I mean, corruption is still there, and you're giving specific people some specific things. And we have jobs that can be able to be created if we're able to now solve climate change issues, because new technologies will be invented, and that means new jobs for us. So if we're able to kind of relate for people who are not as aware about climate change, we're able to have a mass awareness, and we're able to have a mass kind of pull, so that people can be able to now go to their leaders like, climate change is a priority simply because it affects A, B, C, D. That's kind of what I really got from that conversation. We're able to have that discussion. So I do agree with you that the local citizens haven't been able to front climate change as a big issue for them, simply because, as I learned, that they don't still see the relation between climate change and the basic issues, and they still think of it as an individual concern. So food security, insecurity is an individual issue, or job insecurity is an individual issue, or poverty is an individual issue. But then when they now learn to see just how much this relates to climate change issues and environmental degradation, then we're able to actually front this to leaders to be able to push for it. Yeah.
Right. I think, Lynn, you are already involved with a lot of on ground certain kind of activities, wherein you're also involved with different associations, speaking with students all the
Yeah.
time. You are already a very young person. I mean, everybody should know that this smart girl speaking such a big thing. She's just 23. And she has been doing dramatic. Lynn, by the way, I read one of your articles which was published on UNFCCC website blog, and I really started thinking about it, that even the serious these governmental bodies, the policy makers, have started considering youths as a very important people in this sphere. I think youths are the people who are going to take this initiative for the longer period, as compared to the older people who have, the other
Yeah.
generations have already enjoyed their period. And a lot of that's usual a talk that youngsters do, that they are left behind with the struggles of this climate change. But tell me about it. So one context is definitely clear, that people have to get educated about it. There is definitely a need of climate literacy among people. But when you go on ground, when you speak with other Kenyans, do you feel that people are welcoming the thought of the disruption of climate change? Do you feel that people are willing to hear you out. People are willing to take actions on it. How about, tell me about your campaigns and what you guys have been doing.
So I could say the most engaging conference that I was able to actually be part of the organizing team was the local conference of youth, and it created a platform where we're able to have policymakers and youths on the ground to be able to kind of meet and discuss. And there's this disparity between youths and decision makers that doesn't. There's just this gap that needs to be bridged, and I think policymakers are a bit they're trying to be able to be open-minded about it, because I mean climate change has been able to create traction with time simply because youths are more aware, and I think our environmental consciousness as our generation is a bit higher than the generation of the past, who most of the times constitutes the local decision the decision makers. So you find a situation whereby our most receptive audience has always been local farmers or local communities, simply because they want a solution. They are able to see they're losing harvest here and there, they're losing their commodities, so they have a need. And if you're able to explain it to them, then they're able to understand and see that, okay, if we turn around this will happen. They're more receptive. But then when it comes to decision makers, they are a bit structured. So you find that there is laws to be passed and bills, and that means processes. Or there is, if you talk about fossil fuels, that they're looking at it from a monetary point of view, and that's part of most of our strikes. Planet, not people, not profit, because the people on the ground normally don't really care as much about fuel as long as it doesn't cost them a lot. And if you give them an alternative that is, it works for them, if it's environmental friendly, yes. And if it works for them, then you're solving a need, and that works. But then when it comes to now the decision makers, they look at it from a point of our economy relies on this. So it's fossil fuels, our oil and gas gives us this amount of money. So we hear you, we really hear you. They sit down and listen, but then they don't really act as fast. They don't see it as an urgency, because for them they're looking at it from, our economy is up top right now, or we have to consult this person and this person before we can make a decision. There are treaties to be looked at. So you find that on our on-ground activities, on our discussions, we hold conferences a lot of the times, but the decision makers are a bit slow. So you find that what most climate activists and environmentalists have been able to do is now they start their own projects, things that are supposed to be done by governments in most cases.
True.
And the private sector instead are the ones going on the ground and having digging boreholes for some of these communities instead. They're the ones who are giving them new seedlings that are able to actually adapt to conditions, including areas like the semi-arid areas. And I think for me, what really frustrates me as much as a young person is just how much this gap between decision makers and environmental conscious people keeps growing. And we're currently having our election period in Kenya, and we only have one party that is a Green Party. All other people's manifestos are not they don't constitute climate change issues and environmental issues, despite the fact that we've had several conversations with these people. We've held them in meetings. They even create meetings themselves. But then when it comes to now the implementation part of it, they're so slow, and it's frustrating. So I think that's the main issue that I've been able to see over time. But the local mwananchi, the local people are able to listen. They're able to kind of see that this is affecting us. So fine, I may not understand the science of it, but I understand my farm is not producing yields. I understand I don't have food on the table for my kids. And for them, it's easy for them to move. But then when it comes to decision makers, they look at it from a very profitable point of view that will never really work unless they're open-minded enough, because climate change disruption, to be able to actually disrupt the trends that we actually have, includes a bit of loss before we actually start the gains. That's how industrial revolution actually happened. Yeah.
True. True. And I think Lynn, this whole aspect is only because, again, the same thing. the other non-green parties on ground, they would be promising those things which will make them win the elections. And
Yeah.
becoming a green party does not make a political party assured that they will win the elections. And when it comes to elections, government are only concerned about winning them, for
Yeah.
that particular period. So that force, I think people are still, I see that in last couple of years, people have really become vigilant about, climate actions and climate changes and all the climate talks that are happening around. And I think over the period of time, probably in another one decade, people will be very much inclined towards it, because by that time, I think that would have created a dramatic effect on the whole humankind.
Yeah.
But I think common people are already struggling since quite some time. And if you start assessing these issues, common people are facing these problems year on year in an increased manner. And what people have to understand, if there is a natural calamity, if it is also happening, why the intensities are increasing, every year on year. There has to be some scientific reason behind it, right? The intensities will not just increase in an incremental order just like that. There is something changing every year.
Yeah.
And that change is something that people, common citizens, have to really understand. And I think, of course, even probably what you guys are doing on ground, I saw your beautiful picture wherein you were holding, certain banners and doing a lot of on-ground activity. I think, the political governments, when they are taking a political rally, see how many people are getting gathered to listen to them. There are thousands of them, right?
Uh,
Hundreds and thousands of
yeah.
people are
Yeah.
gathering together. When probably Lynn is going, or maybe when Abhilash is speaking about it, probably hundreds, not even hundreds, few count of people are only listening to them. Think about it, a political leader, if that political leader
Yeah.
speaks about the problem in front of that mass, at least for just 30 seconds, that will make people realize that there is one new thing that they should learn about. And I think that's the first step governments should start taking up. Governments are very much focused about demeaning other oppositions and other parties, but as humanity, as us as humans, we really need to come together, and governments can only play a significant role to that large extent. Otherwise, the contribution that you and us are making, definitely it is going to add value to the overall thing. This is how things start. Slowly, drop and you start creating a whole, ocean.
Sure.
But I think it's a high time. We do not have much time left. In
Yeah.
coming 10, 15, in probably 2, 3 decades, things are going to change drastically, and those
Yeah.
effects will be reversible. And when you look at IPCC report, or when you look at countries pledging towards going carbon neutral in 2050, 2070, and so forth, and when you look at on ground, trust me, I don't see it becoming a
Yeah.
reality anytime soon.
Sure.
Means they go and they speak on the forums, but when you look at on ground, there are new coal plants opening up, there are new fossil ways which are coming up around the market, and oh, very interesting question. We just got a question by Manish, and somebody asked that. I think we should address this question. We should resume to that question later. It's a very
Okay.
interesting question. I really would like to hear what people at your age think about it. So, just let me just pop up the question as well on the screen. So Elon Musk is building a new life on Mars. Okay. So is it because of climate change? And is it going to help humanity in any which ways? Is the question. Interesting.
Um, I mean, I don't know if they have watched the movie Don't Look Up. I think that really describes just how much
I do.
that question should be answered. Yes. I mean, the fact that they cannot be able to save the planet they live on and they're trying to invest on other planets just goes to show how much these people are able to actually finance their own personal projects, but they're not able to finance what is actually needed. So yes, I do believe it's because of the climate change issues. I mean, it's like the whole rocket is coming at us, and it's gonna blow up the entire Earth. But then they're still thinking about going to Mars. I mean, if you can be able to channel just this much investment into now saving forests or saving the oceans, it would make a huge difference. And I mean, Earth will be way better than living on Mars, but we're still so um, we have our own agendas so hard that we don't want to look into now what is necessary for our own survival as humankind. And I personally think it could be because they can see it coming at us. They can see just how much effect this climate change is gonna have on us, and they are looking for their own escape route, and we are here not looking up. Yeah.
You are totally bang on. I think the amount of investment, it would require to habitat a planet like Mars. It is going to be humongous. I guess if that money is put into decarbonization, or probably if that money is put into bringing in more innovative ways of generating fuel, through greener resources, I think in fraction of the amount we'll be able to undo a lot of issues that we have created for this
Yeah.
planet. And trust me, the world has money. It's not just Elon Musk,
Yeah.
but the world in totality have a lot of money to solve this problem. And
Almost
people
the number
are
of billionaires. Yeah.
you just need few number of billionaires to sort
That's
this
it.
problem totally, right? People are
Yeah.
fascinated with what Bill Gates is doing, and other billionaires are doing. They're doing quite good work, but I really am glad to hear the question, and I just stopped because this was quite fascinating question to hear. I give a wish a good luck to
Yeah.
Elon otherwise, but I think people have to start thinking about it, that this is a beautiful planet, and we can save this planet if we start acting on an immediate basis. uh, of course, a lot of critics speak about that saving this planet is no more possible. But think about generations. Even if you will relocate, I read somewhere in some of the magazine, one of the magazine, and it said that there are going to be places which will not be habitable on Earth, like a lot of coastal places, because of melting ice in Arctic area. Those coastal places will extinct. There will be places which will be so hot that living there will not be possible. And there are going to be two different kinds of people there.
I
One
mean,
kind of one kind of person
yeah.
would be probably migrating from that region to some other region. But trust me, ask me, if you'll speak with me from the Indian mindset. A lot of people in India, they love their motherland. They won't migrate an inch, and they are going to suffer a lot. And probably you can accommodate a fraction of people uh, through migrations, but a very large amount of people will be willing to suffer and get disrupted at that area. I think I cut you in between. You're saying something, please go ahead.
Um, the issue of climate refugees has been really on the increase. And I think the way we mentioned the issue of floods in Kenya, and we're able to see, actually, I think the one place I can really speak about the most is now my rural home. And we're able to see the Lake Victoria just break its banks. And a lot of people are like moved from where they used to live, and they constantly come back, and it was like a pattern. So the rains come, it floods, they move, and then they have this whole notion of the government should help us. And then they move to another land probably, but they'll always come back because that's their ancestral home. As you mentioned, the way Indians love their motherland. I mean, that happens with a lot of communities because that's like your ancestral home. And the fact that climate change is now making a lot of people lose their ancestral homes is now becoming a whole issue because no one really wants to be a refugee. I mean, you did have land, you were born somewhere, you have an
True.
ancestral um, home somewhere, but now you're losing it because the natural calamity is happening around you. But then, if we were able to now look at it from a different perspective, whereby what are you doing around the region? Because everyone wants to say our ancestors lived here, that's why we have to live here. But what were our ancestors doing differently from what we're doing here to actually um, push this kind of calamities to its brink? So now I think what we need to do in regards to now the issues of refugees, one, I think is our disaster risk management. Our systems of disaster risk management are not really as efficient because we don't predict disasters in time and we're not able to warn people in time. But at the same time, we always wait until the disasters are happening for us to constantly do something about it. So if we're able to, just both governments and citizens, to kind of look at it from a perspective of what were what was done before that maybe we can be able to tap into, but at the same time modernize a little bit because I mean times have changed. To be able to just merge the old and the new in a way that we're able to still remain with the lands that we're able to have, and also governments to be able to predict early enough, give early warning systems before such calamities are happening, for people to now be able to move to higher grounds and kind of also be able to look into investing in ways whereby they're able to now still have these people have their own land back. So instead, for instance, if you're losing this land, maybe someone somewhere had an extra land they're farming on, maybe they're able to, if that land is able to kind of accommodate some of this really flood oriented crops and like rice, because rice needs a lot of water. Be able to now farm on such
True.
areas, and then these people are able to live somewhere else until now, the whole issue is reversed. So I think for me, we're still going to have climate refugees. Actually, with if we continue with the kind of trends we are having right now, and especially if we continue not investing in the solutions, just investing in running, okay, a bit of adaptation and mitigation. Like stop this from happening further. But at the same time, we're adapting to what's going on. I think a combination of both would actually help us in the long run compared to constantly moving, constantly telling people to move. Have you told them why they're moving? Have you told them what else can they do to prevent the next time from this happening to them? So that's my two piece on climate refugees.
No, that's true. That's true. At the end of the day, slowly and gradually, from region to region, every region is going to get impacted. So you move from one place to another, you move from second to third. It is not how you want, your planet to be. Your planet has never been like this, right? And this is something which is
Yeah,
true what you said, that probably working within your own community is the first step. If you really love your motherland, if 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 that land is so important for you, maybe start working for it. Maybe you just become curious that things have been changing, and probably
yeah,
you and your society and people around you, what exactly you guys can do to solve that issue. And I'm totally, I have a +1 on that for you. That is something that I guess everybody should think and start practicing. And you don't need a government or anybody to help you feel that. Today, a lot of regions wherein people who have not moved towards air conditioning, the whole city has converted into air conditioning zone. and and it's a change. Even those changes, of course you can afford an air conditioning, but that is dramatically impacting your environment, and the temperature are going to rise with time because of it. Yeah, so I have another question. I'm not sure how you will respond to it, but one Archie asked that I'm just curious. What if we stop voting for the political parties who don't care or talk about environmental issues? You give your comment. I have a comment to make on this as well. I guess we lost Lynn in between. Uh, no worries. So I think what Archie asked. I think one of the things that we already discussed in this talk today is that even for us to make sure that that impacts the overall selection of a party, I think very important is that there is enough level of literacy among people. If people are literate and if people are together on a cause, then that is going to create some impact on the political party. So let's say if I don't want to vote a government which is not a green government or which does not have an agenda to solve their environmental issues, and if I don't vote, and if the country is struggling with, let's say, other economic disbalances, probably job insecurity or maybe something like that, then that shift will not happen. I think not voting and voting a green party is very important if you have already become conscious. The moment you came to this thought process that green is the life, I think you should start voting those political parties. But political parties just cannot only focus on green things. When it comes to economics, running a country, there are a lot of different aspects of running a country, wherein going green is one of the very important ones. But there are other issues that are required to be addressed as well. So, if, from my personal opinion, if somebody would like to opt in for a political party who is green focused, people should also look into all the other aspects as well. It has to be the right mix. Otherwise, it is going to bring in more disbalance in the economy on the ground level, and the struggles will probably increase more. So, of course, I would say that thumbs up for those governments who are opting in for that, because slowly and gradually, when the voting share will increase for them, the other bigger political party will understand that this issue is big enough issue to address, and they will start transitioning towards becoming a green party. And I think it's a demand. What we just heard is something that every common people should ask for. Fine, you resolve a job insecurity issue, but you also resolve this transition that we have been expecting. I think green transition is something which is very much possible if a government determines that this is something that they would really want to look into. And I think Lynn is back with us. I guess Kenya is already doing a great work in terms of, that's what I've read and heard in quite some time, that Kenya is doing good in terms of converting towards renewable. And I think hydro is something which is one of the main source of power generation for you guys already. So I think, of course, choosing a political party from the standpoint of whether they are opting in for a green issue or not is very important. But simultaneously, you have to look at other issues as well. And the party should be matured and balanced enough that they are also solving a green issue, but they are also considering the other issue of the country, so that eventually by solving a green issue, you are not disbalancing and you are not creating any other issues of the country.
Yeah.
So that's very, very important. And people should not just simply get fascinated about a term and start working towards it. There has to be right balance about everything that people are doing, right?
Oh,
So, Lynn, you just got disconnected, wherein, there was one comment from one of the listener, and he said that, can we stop voting for those people who are not speaking about environmental issues, those governments? I have given my
um,
comment because you dropped out. So I already gave my comment. You have to listen it later.
okay.
That's
I
your
will listen
point.
to yours afterwards. But from my perspective, from a Kenyan perspective, we currently don't have a presidential candidate who's for the green agenda. So we don't have that option yet. So you find that yes, we would love to have leaders who are pro the green agenda, pro climate change issues solving, but then we don't have them. Politics in itself is very expensive. I have a friend who's actually vying, and they were able to share just how much it will cost. It's almost 500,000 just to register for a party to be able to get a ticket, and then there's a nomination and there's a campaign. So most of these people are looking into getting this money back once they get into their political seats, and they will feed you literally anything that will be able to just get them on the seat. So you find that not everybody can be able to afford to be able to run for any seat, and more so, not everyone wants to tap into the green agenda just yet, sadly. So now we would wish. I mean, if everyone was aware, then I don't think we'd even have that question. I mean, I don't think we'd even have to ask ourselves
True.
that can we not vote for them? Because when everyone is on the same page of the same way we look at poverty, that is this person going to, or job insecurity, most people look at like, are they going to create jobs for us? That's the person we're voting for. So if we're able to look at it from one standpoint, or is this person able to now talk about environmental degradation? Are they able to talk about climate change issues? We're going to vote for them. Then then we'll be able to have, like, I will be able to completely answer your question. But until we are able to speak in one voice, I guess we're stuck with who we have, but we are moving forward. I think that's the kind of hope I can give you, because we now are a community of environmentalists who are making a difference. We are educating people, we are creating awareness. Our generation is more engaged in the climate space. So, I mean, right now we may have this generation that in the kind of the vying for who are a bit less engaged in the climate space, but I'm pretty hopeful that the next generation that is vying for the next seats, actually in my country, are more environmentally conscious, climate conscious as well, and they're able to now look at it from the perspective of, I mean, yes, I'm going to tackle job insecurity, but I'm going to use a climate change adaptation method to be able to do this, or an environmentally conscious way of looking into food insecurity. So we do have hope, but right now, I mean, if we don't vote, we don't get any leaders yet, and we do need at least people. We're able to
True.
influence them once they're in leadership, because we're able to have a sit down once this person becomes president or any legal advisor, and we're able to sit down with them in meetings. We're like, yes, you are now the current MP or member of parliament for my region, and my region has extreme case of pollution. What are you planning to do for it? And we're able to just have this discussion and influence them to actually have now environmental issues as part of their go-to projects. So yeah.
So, Lynn, you are leading already couple of different associations and groups. Tell me, do you get an access to these political leaders at even at the MP level or maybe your local representative level? Where you get the access to speak with them about those ongoing concerns, probably share some thoughts? Tell me about how accessible people are there in government or maybe people who are in power.
How accessible? Not very accessible. They're always on the move. They always have meetings. But then when you kind of every political leader likes a large crowd. So when you're able to have a very large group of people meeting in one place and you're telling them, I have almost 1,000 youths who want to talk to you, he'll listen or she will listen. But then when you like on a very personal level, like I have an issue with what's going on in my county or my area or region, they'll always give you just excuses of I have a meeting. Can we meet at this time? But I think with time they've been able to listen. They're more receptive to youth, especially because they've realized that a lot of youths are more knowledgeable about what's going on. And I think the difference has been I have seen since I started as a climate activist versus now is very it's it's actually a good progress. So what it was before was completely. I used to never have access to such people, but right now we're able to have a sit down with them, and they're able to listen simply because they've seen. If you're loud enough, they're able to see. Okay, I can't just shut this person down. So I think also
True.
investing. One thing I learned is invest in yourself, invest in what you know. Then they're able to now listen to you because whatever you present to them is something that they can be able to relate to. They can be able to know, okay, you want this and this change. What do you present? What do you suggest we do? If you're able to now, based on like findings, based on statistics that you've been able to read, you've been able to find, or even like you're able to bring the people, the community that you're mentioning need this to the room, they're able to now kind of come in and okay, listen, and then maybe some of them actually work on it. So it's been progressive. It's not there yet. They're not as accessible, not gonna lie. But during campaign periods, they're very, very accessible, very extremely. But then once they have the seats, they're very shaky.
That's what that's what political parties are good at.
Yeah.
At campaigns level, they are approachable by everyone, but
Oh
post
yeah.
campaigns, you just can't find them anywhere.
Sure.
So, one of the question, Lynn, have you heard of this movement called Save the Soil? Is there
Uh,
any such kind of movement happening locally in Kenya as well? We see a
I
lot
have.
of that happening in India, though.
Oh, I have heard of it, but I've not really interacted with Save the Soil. But I do think it will be a good standpoint for us to have because I think I mentioned this before. I really don't want a situation whereby Kenya is starts investing in some of these activities and projects just when things get really bad. So I think for us, currently our issue with soil has just been mostly our lack of vegetation to actually be able to hold the soil, and it's been able to lose. And I think I mentioned about mudslides, we're losing a lot of nutrients. And I think I saw a few projects happening around the Rift Valley region with Save the Soil. But then it's not as massive as it should be yet. Yeah.
All right. I think Kenya is kind of world leader in tea production, if I'm not wrong. If that is
Yeah,
Kenya only.
yeah.
Kenya has great tea production, right?
You should have some someday when you come by.
Definitely. So Indians love tea. That's so I think you produce the right thing that Indians want. We always drink tea.
Very well.
So I think that all these because the tea also grows on different levels of plateaus.
Yeah.
So if the temperature is rising, are you also seeing change in crop patterns or probably vegetation patterns across regions in Kenya? Have you heard about something like that? If somebody speaks about it, tell me a bit
Yes.
of agriculture stuff.
Our main T zone is in Kericho. It's a place called Kericho, and there was a point where the rains really, really failed, and most of the tea farmers actually abandoned their tea and started now producing other products just to be able to um, kind of not count their losses as much. So you find that the region is cold, so which is very conducive. Then with the increase in temperatures over time, it's made a lot of these farmers now shift to other sources of livelihood and income, kind of like farming other kind of crops instead of tea, simply because just the tea wasn't having as much production as it used to be before. And I think we're seeing a lot of that happening in a lot of our regions in Kenya, simply because people have to transition to now crops that are able to adapt to the kind of weather patterns that we're currently experiencing. So it's kind of creating losses as well, since we don't have enough tea producers just as we used to do before. And even so, especially during the COVID period, where like a lot of borders were closed, and we really export a lot of our tea and coffee as well, and a bit of pyrethrum. And with the closure and the weather patterns, it's just been so hard for people to go back to now planting just in as much the mass production that used to happen the same way. And I think if we're not careful, we might actually lose a lot of our income with time, simply because the weather is not conducive for some of these plants that they want, some of these crops that they want to plant. Or at the same time, we find now the issue of, if we have another pandemic, we are, because they're still trying to get back their losses from before. So they're losing a lot, just having this weather just not cooperating with the kind of crops they're planting.
Okay, tell me about this. So COVID-19 has happened, and COVID-19 has been something that people have never thought about. Uh, when you now assess COVID from the standpoint of climate change, how you weigh things? Do you see things changing before and after COVID? Is it good? It is bad in Kenya? Uh, of course, economically, life losses, all of that is pretty evident, and every country is facing it. But
Yeah.
tell me from the standpoint of the climate mitigations and climate change perspective, that what do you think? What was the impact of COVID over climate change in your country?
COVID raised more awareness than we actually even thought it could. The fact that people are staying home kind of built a bit of curiosity also in people, and at the same time, because people are trying to understand, why do we have a pandemic, or why is this happening? And I think, compared to how activism was back then before COVID versus now, there has been a significant increase in people who are actually supporting the climate movement. And
True.
it's simply because a lot of people are able to now look at it from like, we have a pandemic now, and why is this happening? Because it also happens to be at the same point where we were having locust invasion in our country. So
Mm.
this kind of raised a lot of questions for people, and the climate change scientific facts were able to answer most of these questions for them. So it created a bit more momentum for us, because I can even see, like, with world leaders, the kind of intention they have with climate discussions now compared to before. It's a lot. It's a lot more receptive. So I could say that COVID opened people's eyes, which was a good thing, because I think just to be able to see how much climate change can be able to affect people, because part of the pandemic was also caused because of climate change issues, and being able to just see even the difference in our environment based on people putting their tools down, because there are lesser cars on the road in Kenya, lesser pollution, because our CBD, our central business district, has a lot of air pollution. So being able to just see that disparity was able to make people a bit more conscious about what is happening around them in regards to COVID-19. I mean, regards to climate change, sorry.
Mm.
So the conversation has been heightened. And as I mentioned, we're still not there yet, but it was a really great push for people to now be more aware about climate change and to be able to change how they've been working. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is how humans are. I think we the driving factor for humans have always been fear.
Yeah.
So I think when the fear of COVID-19 erupted, I think that immediate threat gave them, probably the climate activists got kind of a good time when they were able to do a lot of activity over social media
Yeah.
and other places to make people aware that that this is a big problem, but probably climate change would be way bigger than what you're seeing today.
Yeah.
And of course, I think people realize that COVID-19 is immediate; it is immediately threatening our lives, and climate change is not. So probably the shift is more towards something which is immediate and something not what is going to happen maybe probably 5, 6, 7, 10 years back later. But I think how we are moving towards a warmer planet, the kind of COVID-19 impacts that we are looking at, the similar kind of impacts will keep on happening because of climate change, and it will, of course, it is not going to be in a way of heat only. Your rise in temperature, people have to understand, the rise in temperature brings droughts that is responsible for severe deaths. It brings in flood, it brings in earthquakes as well. It brings in a lot of other natural calamities. Think about the wildfires in California and Australia, the bushfire. Millions of hectares of land has been burned, and a lot of homes and a lot of smog for so many days. It took a lot of lives because of that as well.
And I
And
think
these,
the discussion of this was very essential for people to be able to see just how much climate change affects people, because it was the pandemic, and then there was the bushfire, the wildfires happening, and then at the same time, as I mentioned, in Kenya, there was the locust invasion. So it was like a lot of things happening at the same time that, like, I think shook people. As you mentioned, fear is a very good motivator for a lot of human beings. So I think
true.
just having all that happening just was like, this is just like the first episode of what could happen.
No, I think already right now while we are speaking, South Africa is already fighting with serious floods, right? And probably at one country we are not facing a issue, but at the same time some other country is facing some issue, and these intensities of issues are increasing. It cannot be contained so easily if you are sitting idle. It can only happen if we start taking actions towards it. And these things which are probably happening in quarters or half yearlies or probably in a year will start happening every month. And that's insane. That's very hard to believe that we are so ignorant about it. But I think we as people, we as governments, we as policymakers, we as leaders have to come together and we have to start thinking about it, that this is a very serious problem and everybody has to come together and solve this. I think we are very close to 1.5 hour, Len. I think we have already spent a good time on a lot of different questions. It was really it's exciting to know perspectives from your side. I can relate a lot of things that you are saying. I think countries who are primarily developing countries have kind of similar issues. Of course, on local levels, there are different issues as well. But on a larger perspective, the agendas when it comes to climate change, let's say, a lot of problems that we are facing are very much similar, right? India is also facing droughts. India is also facing, rainfalls which we never thought that it is going to be of that size, but that is happening. Landslides have become frequent. Coastal places are getting too much of cyclones, and things are really getting scary with time. Sorry. One last question I really want you to address, Len. Tell me that reason which you think will keep people motivated in Kenya to really think and work towards this whole climate issue. Tell me about things that people are doing, or maybe reasons why people should get motivated to do something. Is there any impact happening? At least few fraction of people are doing something about it. But is it creating some impacts, why people should get motivated and start shaking hands with you and start doing stuff.
Um, from a community
I'm shaking hand with you. I have total faith in you. It's not my personal question. I'm just asking from a general perspective. Why a common person, if they are listening to you, if they're looking at you in an event on ground, uh, what are the motivation factors for them?
um, I think for me, the greatest motivation factor is a good future for my future generation, so children, whatever. So I think one thing that really look forward to is kind of like the hope I have in having a better environment, in having any generation that comes after me to know that I safeguarded what was supposed to be for them. Because I mean, we are passers-by in this art. We have phases of birth. I mean, love, marriage, or not, and then death, of course. So, I mean, we are just passers-by. We're guests on this earth, and being able to understand just how much you're able to treat the platform you're given, the space you're given as a guest, will help you also understand just how much you're able to take care of something with the fragility that it has. So one thing that's been able to be a motivating factor for me is being able to see my community change. We were less aware. People did had habits of, just as simple as littering, which promoted pollution, and being able to see, even from as young as 16, as young as 8 year old, being able to be more aware about habits of littering, habits of planting trees. It's been a very hopeful journey. It's just whatever we're doing, whatever we're saying, whatever we are fighting for on the streets is actually working. To be able to have different generations kind of merging together, the young and the old and the ones just right in the middle, being able to come together and support just the platform we have, the space we have as of Mother Earth. Actually, with yesterday being Earth Day, I mean, investing in our planet means changing our habits. Investing in our planet means waking up every day and choosing to actually do better for the Earth. And that has been my greatest holding factor. And also being able to see the community of climate activists and environmentalists in Kenya growing has been such, I think, it gives me so much hope, because you're able to see people who are less aware, people who are questioning why are you doing this, being able to be part of you in the street, on the streets, marching towards this goal of protecting the planet. Being able to see our governments now, we moved from not really having a green party at all to now at least we have one. So that's progress for us. Moving from having young people sitting at home just playing video games or watching TV to being on the ground, on the streets, educating their communities, creating projects, creating organizations and associations, even for them, leading some of them, and engaging these leaders to be able to make a difference. So I think we are moving forward. I think that's the greatest thing that we need to keep in mind. It's not where we are supposed to be yet, given, but we are moving forward. And I think the fact that we are not leaving anyone behind, we are having local communities being part of this, indigenous communities being part of this, world leaders being part of this conversation, and even transversing borders through social media. I mean, like right now, I'm talking to an audience from India, from Kenya, and different parts of the world. It helps to just know that we are building momentum and we are actually doing something about it. And the fact that we're still not there yet gives us a bit more motivation to do more, to do better as generations go by. So for me, that's been my motivation factor, and being able to see just from a Kenyan perspective how much people are changed. I'm able to influence the community around me. Moving from, I mean, my household never really was aware, and I think we had a battle with my own mother at some point when she used to throw things on the ground, and it used to really it's that ache. And with time, it's now developed as an ache for her, because she used to just never mind just throwing litter on the ground, but now she puts it in her bag, and she's like, every single time she's like, she waits for an applause, just a tap on the back. And I think being able to see such progress, as small or as big, is something to just look forward to, and just to remind people to never give up on the fight. Because I know you may want the whole world to change its perspective or its way of doing things, but then you're not looking at it from the fact of you've influenced this one person, you've influenced this community around you, you've influenced that young child who is looking up to you as a mentor, and you're able to now develop this community of climate and aware people and environmentally conscious people, and you're able to now have these conversations with people who are supposed to be experts in science, is able to invest into now how do we change climate change, what new ways are we able to look into things. So it's all coming to play. It's taking longer than we should, but it's all coming to play. And I think we just need to build just how much we're influencing people. Yeah.
So I think I can totally vouch on that. I think
Yeah.
I have also been seeing a lot of changes in society. People are definitely willing to listen. People are definitely willing to do something about things slowly and gradually. I
Yeah.
remember quite some time back. I went to a plantation farm. It's a place where a lot of people are coming and they're planting small plants so that it eventually become a tree after some time. So planting
Mhm.
trees, planting is something that is core of this whole movement. And I won't quantify how much impact it will create, but at the end of the day, it just brings the emotions on the table as well. I
Yeah.
remember I saw a child came to plant a tree because uh, it was his birthday, and his parents bought him to do that, and that shows that it has started becoming a part of the culture as well, and that's what we
Yeah.
need. We need this issue to become as part of our culture. It is very important that at the early age, in schools and colleges, students
Mhm.
are taught
Yeah.
about this climate scenario, and there
Mhm.
has to be a moral sense attached to it, that if you're going in this world, there is something that you really need to take care of, and it's
Yeah.
how you have an etiquette to live in your home, an etiquette to talk with your people. There is an
Yeah.
etiquette to behave with this planet as well, and that's very, very, very important at all the aspects. And quite few countries have already opted it, recently, and countries like India, and probably I'm not sure how Kenya is responding to it, but countries like India have started demanding that at education level, people should be, students and child should be educated, that they should
Yeah.
start responding towards it. And it feels bad when you go and see people who are dramatically struggling, because poor people are struggling the most.
Yeah.
And when you see that there was a rainfall, and then the whole news channel is captured by a farmer who was actually given his whole year to farm something, eventually came out to be a result of this disaster. It actually, people sitting in homes and talking, they won't understand that level of pain which these people
Yeah.
are going through. But that pain is something is not bad to share. I think when you share a pain, then you become matured with that specific topic, and you eventually start doing things about it. And
Mhm.
I feel that it's a high time that as community we all should come together. We should educate children. You're doing a fantastic job. I've seen your photographs since we have talked, and I can see that you guys are serious about it. And I tell you, Len, the best part of it is that how you guys have been creating your creatives, being vocal with your pictures. That is what required probably at this stage of climate fight. people
Yeah.
really want to see, because that's how the generation is. If you are able to grab the eyes of younger generation, they are going to last long. And if they inculcate this thought process within them, the impact period for them would be bigger, and
Yeah.
eventually that is going to help us. How you will achieve 2050, how you will achieve 2070 target, you will only achieve if your young generation, which is sitting in 2020, is going to
Yeah.
work till 2070.
Yeah.
It's not the person whose life is limited to next 10 years. It's
Yeah.
young
Sure.
people like you, and I'm a bit younger as well. I would not say I'm that much old, but younger people like us are going to
Yeah.
do stuff, right? So
And I
it's
mean, for a lot of people, we've been looking at it from the perspective of um, the older generation needs to, come back down and change things. But I think being able to now take the front part of leading this movement towards environmentally conscious and climate conscious activities has been a tremendous, game changer, because now it's the youths who are telling this world leaders, no, do this instead of this to be able to do, to make an impact.
true.
And it's these kids who are actually even taking platforms and they're telling their parents, no, we want to plant trees instead of doing this and that. So I think leadership in the youth space has also grown tremendously, and being able to share stories between different people from different regions of the earth, I mean, different continents, has also been an impactful way of, raising the bar for youths. Because now I'm motivated by other people that I'm able to see who are taking now much space in the climate space, and I'm able to motivate someone else who's maybe like a grade behind or something of that sort. So I think we need to also remember that where we are currently is making a difference, and we need to tell that story to be able to now motivate somebody else, to be able to also now take leadership as well, and also mentorship. So currently, this is where I am. There's somebody I know who's looking up to me and who's really interested in what I'm doing, and take them under their wing. And being able to have associations, as I mentioned, was a good way to start, because now we're able to have all these people coming together, sharing their stories, and be able to see best cases. How do you lead this? How do you change this? And how do you now also supporting each other as we now do projects towards climate impact?
Right. So before ending this talk, Lynn, I missed one question that we spoke yesterday. I really
Uh-huh.
am fascinated when I heard when you said that you had a debate wherein people were specifically talking about that how their life transitioned when they actually encountered being a sustainable person, wherein they were doing something else in life. Tell me about it. Tell me about the overall output of that debate. What exactly is the key takeaways that we can hear from you?
I think I'll give a background first, just short one.
Yeah,
We were having a discussion about there's this transition between now adult life and being a child. So you were in school and everything was catered for, but now you have to pay your bills and you have to look for a job. So you find a situation whereby you get your job at maybe like an oil company, and you're an activist, but this is the only place you've got an employment. So this comes with now the issue of it's a very huge debate in your head between your values and, well, life itself. So I think
true.
the key takeaway that we got was you can be able to influence the people around you. So you get that job at an oil company and you're able to influence them into transitioning to other more environmentally friendly sources of energy, for instance. So I think there's this aspect of, I mean, if you it's easier to actually change a system when you're part of a system. So it's when you're inside maybe this organization that deals with something like coal, and you're able to now talk to them because you're part of them now. You're able to now look at the economics of it. Okay, you guys are earning this profit, and this is what you guys are doing currently. It's not environmentally conscious, but then if you do this instead as a way of still earning the same profit and still being able to now make an impact, a good impact on the earth, then we're able to transition. So I think that was the key takeaway, that life does not mean you abandon your fight, you abandon your values. So just because you can be able to now make even a greater difference while being in that system. So there's always a way for you to always make a difference. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, don't always give up,
Yeah.
or just, just be comfortable with where you are. Be the change that you want to see, even while you're being in the place that brings about a very huge debate in your head. Yeah.
True, and I think people are not required to become climate activists to become
Yeah.
climate conscious, right? I
True.
think I am a tech guy. I spend much of my time in tech stuff, but this
Yeah.
is something that I do whenever I get time, because this is something that I feel that probably this small contribution is something that I can probably give value to planet Earth, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, people can contribute to 5 minutes, a minute, or probably just 5 minutes a month. That
Yeah.
smaller step, if they start taking up, maybe, we will be able to cope up with this issue sooner. And
Yeah.
fingers are crossed. I definitely wish that, we all come together and we start working on this. Uh, so, any closing notes, Len? Anything that you would like to speak that probably we missed?
Um, Not really. Like, I think we've covered a lot of bases, but the one thing I want
We
to now, I'd really
we
like to
we, we
just.
actually spent more than approximately 1 hour 45 minutes, huh?
Oh, okay. Just to wrap up, I think I could say from a Kenyan perspective, just how much we are connected as the world, and our issues are also connected. And I think I'd honestly like to just give people the challenge of being able to be part of now the global voices that are able to make a difference. So you're able to share whatever you're doing and be able to also support what other people are doing, volunteer anywhere you're able to give, in whatever capacity you're able to. So some people, because as mentioned, I mean, in your team, in my team, I have a communication person, I have the person who does the projects, is the introvert who really does the tech support and but he's not really like as vocal, but at the same time he's able to give support towards all activities we're able to do. So never look at anything you're doing as less. Just find the strength you have and use it towards supporting any climate goal that maybe you're interested in. So
True.
actually, from Kenyans, I think what we're doing is I'm really looking forward to us building this community into like a bigger space, a more um, impactful area. And I really hope that we're able to now kind of connect with other generations to be able to now push this goal forward, and we're able to just reduce our carbon emission, and we're able to just reduce this, just maybe a goal to net zero. It will be like a very good. I know it looks unachievable, but it is. It honestly is. Yeah.
Yeah, so with totally with you on that, Len. I think this is what the world needs. Even smaller drops can do amazing things in this world.
Yeah.
And climate change is an issue that everybody has to understand. And slowly and gradually, people are coming together. Maybe if you'll ask me 4 years back, I was not very much sure about what exactly climate change is.
Yeah.
But maybe those smaller drops are reaching different people, and eventually everything is becoming like an ocean. And
Yeah.
hopeful that things will become big enough that the impacts can be more impactful when it comes to climate mitigation.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to have you on the show, Len. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really fascinated to see your energy, the kind of work that you guys are doing, and just keep doing that. Let's be connected and let's spread as much knowledge as we can, because I think the knowledge is the key that this world is missing, and we need to
Yeah.
make sure that people really know that the problem is. We need to know that we really need to force policymakers, governments, and the other institutions to start acting towards this biggest threat. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I had a very wonderful discussion, and I'm looking forward to
Same.
more collaborations like this.
We'll definitely do. I think we'll probably have a catch up with the team as well later
Yeah.
sometime. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and let's make some impact. Let's try and save this world in the way we can, and let's hope that the whole world comes together with us to do the same. Thank you so much, Len. Thank you so much again.
Okay,
Bye
bye.
bye.
Thanks for listening to this podcast of Conscious Citizens. Be sure to subscribe and follow the show on this app right now to be notified on upcoming episodes. Also, don't forget to rate and review the show because that motivates and brings a smile. Thank you.